The bells of Camelot toll midnight, their iron voices sinking into the marrow of stone walls, as though the castle itself remembers the weight of destiny. Down in the royal vault, where the air tastes of iron and ancient dust, the torches hiss and sputter, bending in draughts that rise from no earthly wind. Shadows crawl across the chamber, gathering not upon the walls but around a single relic, an obsidian mirror framed in runes older than Albion itself. Its surface ripples with a dark breath, whispering words too faint for mortal ears. Merlin steps forward, his cloak of shadow weave trailing like night's own veil across the floor. His eyes, solemn and weary beyond his years, narrow as the glass trembles with unseen voices. He knows the prophecy. The mirror of shadows does not reveal what is, but what fate hides. To look is to invite ruin, to touch is to bear damnation. And yet, his hand rises, pulled by some deeper will. Behind him, footsteps strike the stones like hammers. Arthur's presence fills the chamber, armor ringing with each stride, the echo of kingship heavy upon him. His voice, low and steady, cuts through the silence. "Merlin, what have you brought into my hall?" Merlin does not turn. His reflection is gone, replaced instead by visions that churn in the black glass. A kingdom drowned in fire, a throne overturned, Arthur's crown shattered. And then a single image sharpens. A crowned corpse, pale lips cracked, Arthur's blade dripping crimson upon its chest. Merlin's breath catches, the weight of inevitability pressing against his chest. Arthur's hand finds Excalibur's hilt, though not in threat but in trembling need. "Tell me," he demands, "does it show our future?" Merlin swallows the bitter taste of truth. His voice is a whisper of stone cracking under frost. It shows what destiny conceals, and what it reveals cannot be undone. The mirror shivers, like water disturbed. A raven cries outside, its voice sharp as a knife slicing the night. The torches bend, their flames stretching toward the relic as if drawn by its hunger. Far beyond these walls, in a tower shrouded in cold mist, Morgana feels the pulse of the mirror deep within her veins. Her breath fogs the glass of her chamber window, frost spreading beneath her fingertips. She smiles faintly, a smile of inheritance reclaimed. "It calls to me," she murmurs, as though to the shadows that coil around her, "as it was always meant to." Back within the vault, Arthur circles the mirror, his reflection fractured, multiplied into shards that bend and twist across the surface. He sees himself triumphant, himself broken, himself betrayed. Each flicker is a wound upon his certainty. "Can such visions be trusted?" he asks, his voice faltering. Merlin's gaze lingers on the glass, where his own shadow stretches long, longer than any man's. "The mirror does not lie," he says, "but truth wears many faces. Which one becomes flesh? That is what it conceals." Arthur's fist tightens on his sword. "And if betrayal waits for me there, then it waits for us both," Merlin cuts softly, though his eyes betray a dread he cannot voice. The mirror hums now, a low vibration through the stone floor, as though the earth itself strains beneath it. The runes blaze faintly, sickly red, casting the chamber in a glow like fresh blood. In the flickering light, Arthur's shadow and Merlin's seem to merge, indistinguishable, bound in a single silhouette against the wall. A gust extinguishes one torch, plunging half the chamber into black. The mirror swells with light, and for an instant Gwen's face appears, veiled in sorrow, tears staining her cheeks as fire consumes Camelot's gates. The image vanishes as swiftly as it came, leaving only silence. Arthur steps back, shaken, his eyes fixed upon the relic. "This thing will tear the heart from my kingdom," he says. Merlin lowers his hand at last, though the chill of the glass lingers in his bones. His gaze falls not on Arthur, but upon the raven that watches from the vault's high window, its black eyes gleaming with secret knowledge. "The heart of the kingdom," Merlin murmurs, was always destined to bleed. The raven beats its wings once, scattering feathers like ash across the stones. And as its cry echoes, the mirror's surface stirs again, not with visions of kingdoms or corpses, but with a whisper that shapes itself into Merlin's own name. The chamber holds its breath, the air thick with dread. The mirror has spoken, and its first answer is ruin. The storm breaks over Camelot, rain slashing its stone battlements in a rhythm like war drums calling unseen armies. Lightning claws across the sky, spilling its white fury upon the towers, and for a moment the kingdom is lit as though already ablaze. Within the council chamber, the air is heavy with damp, banners clinging to the walls like shrouds. Arthur sits at the long table, crown pressed to his brow like a brand of iron. His eyes are not upon his knights, nor upon the maps sprawled across oak. They are fixed on the shadows gathering in the corners, for he feels them, growing thicker with each night since the mirror was revealed. He speaks, voice low and taut, the sound of a man at war with silence. Whispers move through the villages. They say shadows rise where no sun falls, that the people's faith in me falters. Merlin, his gaze turns, sharp, searching. Tell me the truth. Is this your doing? Merlin, who stands at his side, feels the words like blades between his ribs. The mirror's visions haunt his sleep, fire and betrayal gnawing at his heart. He wants to speak, to deny, to soothe. Yet the cloth clenched in his palm, the fragment the mirror spat forth, stained and torn with royal silk, burns with unspoken prophecy. He cannot bring it into the light. Instead, he bows his head. Sire, I would never betray you. The words tremble like a prayer against the storm. Gwen steps forward, her voice soft as falling rain. Arthur, do not let shadows steal what we hold. The people follow the strength of your heart. Trust must bind us, or Camelot will fracture before the enemy ever strikes. Her hand rests upon Arthur's, warm against the cold weight of his crown. Yet even her presence cannot banish the fog that coils around his mind, seeded by the mirror's cruel vision. Far from the chamber, beneath dripping boughs, Morgana treads the sodden forest. Her cloak is heavy with rain, her breath misting in the chill. Yet she feels none of it. The mirror's call thrums in her blood, pulling her deeper into the storm-lit woods. Each droplet upon her lashes shimmers like black fire, each step a vow. It is mine, she whispers to the trees, her voice sharp with hunger. A weapon, a throne, a kingdom carved from ruin, as it was promised. Ravens stir from their perches as she passes, circling her like heralds of conquest. In the quiet of Gaius's study, candles gutter in the draughts. The old physician bends over tomes bound in cracked leather, their pages brittle as bone. He mutters incantations long forbidden, tracing the lines of law that speak of blood rights and mirrors forged as prisons for truths no man should bear. He turns to Merlin, eyes heavy with dread. This mirror was not made to guide us. It was made to devour. To look into it is to give it root within your soul. His voice breaks into silence, and for a heartbeat the chamber smells of ash, as though fire had already come. Merlin closes his eyes, but the mirror is there still, its whispers twining into his dreams, visions of Arthur's blade wet with blood, of Camelot reduced to embers. Every path is ruin, every choice a betrayal. He says nothing. His silence is louder than truth. When dawn comes, the storm breaks into a sky stained red, the light spilling across Camelot's towers like fresh blood. From the battlements Arthur gazes eastward, where smoke coils against the horizon. His jaw tightens, the weight of unseen war pressing closer. "It begins," he murmurs, though he does not see the shadow behind him. For there, in the gloom of the stair, Merlin's hand trembles, clutching that fragment of silk torn and blood-stained, the mirror's cruel gift. He hides it within his sleeve, for to reveal it would be to shatter what fragile trust remains. The wind howls through the towers, and with it comes the echo of laughter too distant to place, as though Morgana herself rides upon the storm. And Camelot holds its breath, unknowing that the first stone of its ruin has already been cast. Mist clung to the forest of Wormsmere like the breath of the forgotten dead. Each tree stood as a sentinel, bark slick with dew, their branches clawing at the shrouded sky. Beneath them, the ground pulsed with a strange rhythm, roots knotting around ancient stones etched in runes too old for mortal memory. The air was thick with the scent of iron and damp moss, as though the earth itself bled beneath the fog. It was here that Merlin walked, lantern unlit, for the mirror's pull alone guided his steps. In the heart of the glade, the shadows bent inward. The mirror of shadows rose from the ground as if the soil had birthed it, its obsidian surface swelling with movement. It was no longer glass, but water frozen in midnight, rippling with futures untold. The runestones hummed, a low dirge that set the marrow quaking. Merlin's breath faltered as visions bled across the surface. He saw Morgana's hands clutching the throne, her eyes burning with triumph. Arthur's crown lay shattered at her feet like broken faith, while Gwen wept before an altar of flame, her prayers drowned by screams. Yet behind every ruin flickered another face, his own, cloaked in black, eyes hollow with betrayal, lips twisted in silence. The mirror showed not one truth but many, each more damning than the last. The earth groaned. The glass trembled. Then came a voice, neither man nor woman, older than kings, colder than graves. It seeped into him like smoke, heavy with eternity. "Choose," it whispered, "power in exchange for truth. Salvation, bought with sacrifice." Merlin staggered back, his heart hammering. "I want no bargain," he hissed. "Your promises are poison." Yet the mirror twisted, and Arthur's death filled the surface again and again. His body falling, his blade red, his crown tumbling into the mud. Each vision crueler, more unrelenting. From the tree-line came a rustle, a hiss of wet leaves. Frost spilled over the earth, creeping across moss and stone, chilling Merlin's breath. A figure stepped from shadow, pale and relentless. Morgana. Her eyes gleamed with hunger, her cloak trailing frost as though winter itself knelt before her. "I knew you would come here," she said, voice soft and venomous. "It calls to me, Merlin. It has always called to me. Do you feel it? The truth buried in its heart? The power that was denied me?" She reached forward, hand trembling not with fear, but with yearning. "It was always meant for me." The mirror pulsed, a heartbeat of black light. Its glow bled across the clearing, draping both sorcerer and witch in the same merciless brilliance. In its light, there was no difference between them, only shadows bound to destiny's chain. Merlin's throat tightened. He could see her reflection in the mirror, her eyes alight, her hands upon the throne. He could see himself beside her, not as protector but as betrayer. The voice coiled around his thoughts, tempting, relentless. "Choose, or lose all." He raised a hand, uncertain whether to push her back or seize the glass himself. His breath caught. His heart warred. Was shielding Arthur's fate an act of love, or was surrendering to the mirror's truth the only way to save him? Morgana's fingers brushed the surface. It pulsed, the earth shuddered, and the glade seemed to bow beneath its power. Merlin's hand hovered inches away, torn between destiny's cruel snare and the fragile hope that still burned in his chest. The mirror's glow deepened, swallowing their reflections into one. And in that silence, the forest held its breath, waiting for who would claim the shadow, and who would be consumed by it. The great hall of Camelot groaned under the weight of storm and silence. Rain leaked through cracks in the high windows, streaking across banners that sagged like weary soldiers. Firelight wavered upon the walls, a fragile glow that seemed ready to die with every gust of wind. Upon the dais sat Arthur, his crown gleaming dully in the flame's reflection, his eyes shadowed with doubt. Around him gathered the knights of the realm, their armor still slick with mud, the stench of smoke and unrest clinging to them like chains. They had fought to steady villages unraveling beneath rumor and fear, but even their hearts bore the same tremors. The whispers were everywhere, that shadows walked where no sun reached, that the king's reign was fraying, that the sorcerer who stood at his side was both protector and doom. Arthur's voice, low and edged with strain, broke the hall's silence. They speak of betrayal in hushed voices. They speak of darkness slipping beneath Camelot's doors. How am I to lead men who no longer trust what they see in the light? Beside him, Merlin lowered his eyes, a phantom weight pressing against his chest. For the visions of the mirror clung to him like frost to glass. Arthur's crown broken, Camelot in ash, his own hands dripping with guilt. He longed to speak, to ease the king's unrest, yet every word tasted false upon his tongue. It was Gwen who stepped forward, her hand resting upon Arthur's clenched fist. Her voice, soft yet unwavering, filled the hall like a candle's glow. Your people need not only their king's blade, Arthur, but his heart. Fear is a shadow, and shadows vanish when light endures. She held his gaze, steady as stone, though within her own breast she too felt the creeping dread that slithered through every corridor of the castle. But beneath, in chambers sealed from sunlight, Morgana knelt before the mirror. The air was thick with the stench of charred herbs, her breath sharp with incantations that clawed at the walls. Runes ignited upon her skin like burning brands, searing her flesh with power she welcomed as destiny. Her eyes burned with venomous prophecy as she bound her will to the mirror's heart. "Rise," she hissed, "rise and answer your true master." The mirror shuddered. A tremor coursed through stone, through timber, through marrow. Above, in the great hall, every torch guttered and died. The chamber plunged into suffocating black. Gasps echoed, steel hissed from sheaths, and the knight's courage faltered in the sudden dark. Then came the sound, wings battering against glass. A raven burst through the high-stained window, shards scattering like stars across the council table. Its cry split the silence, a scream of omen. Feathers fell like night's tears upon the maps of Camelot's realm. Arthur rose, Excalibur in hand. The blade hummed with a faint light, pale and resistant, as though fighting some unseen corruption. The glow spilled across the raven's wings as it wheeled above, then vanished into the rafters. Merlin's gaze fell to the shards scattered at his feet. Each piece of stained glass caught his reflection, twisted, warped, unfamiliar. He saw himself with hollow eyes, lips curled in betrayal. He turned his face away, but the shards clung to the image, as though mocking him with inevitability. Arthur's voice cut through the silence, sharp with defiance. "This castle will not fall to shadows, not while I still draw breath." Yet his hand trembled upon the hilt, the weight of Excalibur heavier than steel. Merlin said nothing. His silence hung like a blade unspoken, for he knew that destiny's grip was closing. The choice was upon him, to shield Arthur from the truth and risk his ruin, or to reveal what he had seen and fracture the bond that held Camelot together. The hall waited, breathless, as if the very stones leaned closer. The raven's cry echoed again from the darkness above, a tolling bell for the fate of kings. And in that stillness, the fracture began. Night deepened over Camelot, its towers drowning beneath a shroud of blood-red haze. The moon, veiled in crimson, burned like a wounded eye above the battlements, casting the castle in a pall of omen. Within the vault, the silence was thick as grave soil. The mirror of shadows stood unguarded at the chamber's heart, its obsidian surface rippling like black water disturbed by tides unseen. The air was colder here, heavy with whispers that slithered through the stones, voices of kings long buried, weaving promises of dominion and ruin in the same breath. Merlin entered, the starfire lantern trembling in his hand, its light sputtering as though it too feared the mirror's hunger. His steps faltered, for he knew what lingered in its depths. Morgana's power coiled like a serpent, bound to the mirror's heart. To shatter it would not be victory, but the unbinding of truths too dangerous for the living. He hesitated, every breath a war between duty and dread. Arthur followed, his stride heavy with suspicion. His hand clutched Excalibur's hilt, yet the resolve in his eyes was not of certainty, but of fear. He looked upon Merlin, searching for treachery in the shadows. "You brought us here," he said, his voice sharp as steel drawn in anger. "Tell me, sorcerer, was it always your intent to bring Camelot to its knees?" Merlin turned, his lips parted to answer, but the mirror stirred. Its surface swelled with visions, pouring into the chamber like floodwater. Arthur locked in battle with Morgana, their blades shrieking across fire-lit ruins. Gwen, veiled in black, crowned amidst smoke and mourning. And above it all, Camelot itself drowned in a storm of flame, its towers crumbling like ash into the sea of night. "No!" Arthur's voice cracked, the weight of the vision pressing upon him. His sword rattled in its scabbard. Merlin stepped closer, drawn against his will. His reflection did not greet him. The shadows swallowed his face until nothing remained but a hollow void. Then the glass breathed. A shape emerged from the surface, rippling forward as though the mirror had birthed it, Merlin's own likeness. Cloaked in black, eyes aglow with fire, its smile was a wound carved into his own face. Arthur's blade leapt free, Excalibur gleaming, but its light dimmed in the mirror's presence, flickering like a dying star. The apparition laughed with Merlin's voice, a sound that struck the marrow. "So fragile," it whispered, "so blind. You cling to bonds already broken. I am the truth you fear, the shadow beneath your loyalty." Arthur staggered, his faith shattering like glass. His gaze fell upon Merlin, torn between trust and ruin. "If this is your future," he breathed, "then you will be my death." Gaius, watching from the threshold, pressed a hand to his heart. His eyes glistened with sorrow, for he felt history itself tilt, the tide of destiny crashing against stone. The apparition stretched out a hand, its fingers dripping with shadow, reaching for Arthur. Excalibur trembled, its hum fading into silence. The vault quaked, runes igniting on the walls like veins of fire. Merlin's breath caught, every part of him torn. Was this vision his damnation, or a weapon crafted to unravel them? His doppelganger's smile widened, its voice a blade of certainty. "All bonds will break, all crowns will fall, and it begins with you." Then came the sound, a crack sharp as splitting ice. The mirror fractured, its veins glowing with crimson light. The air screamed, the chamber shaking as though the world itself recoiled. Shadows bled from the fissures, coiling around Arthur, around Merlin, swallowing the very firelight. The mirror demanded its price, and Camelot stood upon the edge of its ruin. Dawn bled across Camelot, its crimson light spilling like blood over battlements slick with night's rain. The air hung heavy with the scent of smoke and wet stone, as though the very castle had been baptized in sorrow. In the vault below, silence pressed close, broken only by the faint whispers rising from shards strewn across the floor. The mirror of shadows lay fractured, its pieces still alive with the futures it once held, each fragment breathing curses into the dim light. Arthur stood over the wreckage, chest heaving, Excalibur trembling in his grasp. The blade caught the dawn's fire but shivered in his hand, no longer a symbol of certainty, but of doubt. He looked not upon victory, but upon ruin, the ruin of faith, the ruin of trust. His gaze fell upon Merlin, whose face was pale, haunted by silence too long carried. Arthur's voice broke, harsh with grief and suspicion. "Is this what remains of destiny? Shards and lies." Merlin did not answer. His lips parted, but no sound came, for within him the mirror still lived. Its visions gnawed at his spirit, the doppelganger's smile lingering like a brand upon his soul. He felt Arthur's pain, and in it, his own guilt deepened, though his secrets remained unspoken. Gwen knelt upon the stone, her hands trembling as she gathered the fragments. Each shard burned against her skin, as though grief itself had taken form. Her tears fell upon the glass, vanishing without trace, swallowed by whispers. "Every piece feels alive," she whispered, voice breaking, "as if sorrow itself will never leave this place." From the threshold Gaius spoke, his tone heavy with knowledge too grim to soften. "A broken mirror scatters destiny. No path is whole. The threads unravel, and chaos takes root. What was once bound is now unbound." His eyes lingered on Merlin, sorrow shadowing them. There is no telling what futures have been freed, or what horrors may follow. But Morgana was gone, her presence lingering only in the echo of her laughter, drifting like smoke through the vault. She had vanished into the mists, the mirror's power woven into her veins. In the shards, her shadow still flickered, as if mocking those who remained. Above, the kingdom stirred uneasy. In the streets, whispers spread, of curses that no crown could banish, of omens seen in blood-red dawn. Mothers drew children close, knights murmured beneath their breath, and the people spoke of shadows walking beside them in daylight. Camelot's heart throbbed with fear, each word a fracture in the faith that had bound king and kingdom. Merlin's eyes found one shard lying apart, dark and gleaming. He bent to lift it, and in its surface his reflection appeared only to dissolve into shadow. The smile of his double glimmered faintly, cruel and knowing, as though destiny itself had not been destroyed but multiplied. He staggered back, his breath sharp in his throat. The weight of fate twisted tighter about him, every choice now sharper, every betrayal nearer. Arthur came to him then, placing a hand upon his shoulder. The gesture was meant for comfort, yet it felt fragile, strained with secrets unspoken. Merlin bowed his head, guilt pressing down like a crown of thorns. Outside, ravens wheeled above the spires, their cries tolling across the sky like bells for the dead. Their wings cut through the crimson dawn, black against red, a promise of reckoning. The mirror lay shattered, yet its shadow endured. And in that shadow, both king and sorcerer stood bound, their fates chained to a reckoning neither could escape. The dawn promised no peace, only war to come.